Good afternoon, welcome. You are tuned into the Labor Forum. This is WRFG 89.3 FM in Atlanta, Georgia. My name is Diane Mathowitz. I'm a retired auto worker, and my co-host, Paul McLennan with the Transit Workers Union, is here in the studio as well. I want to welcome you to this edition of the Labor Forum. We will be on from 4 until 5 every Monday, here to bring news and views, analysis of the issues important to workers in their own voice. We very much appreciate your listening, and you can be tuned in so many ways to hear this program on your radio at 89.3 FM, online on your computer at WRFG.org. You could be listening on your mobile devices since we have a WRFG app. And of course, this program is also live streamed on YouTube at the Labor Forum YouTube channel. And so we, again, appreciate all the ways that you listen to this program and get the information that we work so hard to bring to you each week. The views that are expressed on the Labor Forum, though, may not be those of the Board of Directors, staff, or volunteers here at WRFG. I want to remind folks, in case anybody has ever forgotten, that the song that opens up the Labor Forum is by a great singer-songwriter, John Fromer, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. But the CD that this song, We Do the Work, comes from has the same name. And John, for many years, was one of the people who sang at the annual School of the Americas protest and brought great energy and great music to that venue as well. So I think you can get his stuff in different places. I certainly encourage it because it's good music. So we will start today with our labor headlines, move into this week in labor history, and then we're going to have a call-in from the Workers' Rights Rally that's taking place at the Georgia Capitol. It started at 4 o'clock, the same time as this program. And then at 4:30, we're going to have such special guests. Please do stay tuned until then. 2 workers from Bangladesh are touring the United States. They are garment workers, and they are here to talk about the connection between U.S. multinationals who employ literally hundreds of thousands of workers in Bangladesh to produce all kinds of garments and apparel, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, just a whole range of clothing. And the relationship between their poor wages, and more than that, their dangerous working conditions, and the millions in profits that is generated by their work and goes into the hands of these corporations here in the U.S. So that'll be at 4:30, so please stay tuned. Here are our labor headlines for today, Monday, February 23rd. This past Wednesday, February 18th, workers won a $14 million lawsuit charging labor trafficking against a Signal International shipyard in Pascagoula, Mississippi. The jury verdict in this case has both international and national significance. The plaintiffs are Indian men who were recruited to work as pipe fitters and welders following the 2005 hurricane that devastated the Gulf Coast and scattered the corporation's workforce. Signal's business boomed with all the needed repair to oil rigs, ships, and port facilities. The company turned to recruiting workers from India. Some 500 men who paid as much as $25,000 for the job in the U.S. were promised green cards, permanent residency for themselves and their families, and good pay. Many of them sold everything they had and went into debt for this chance to work for Signal. Instead, they found themselves in virtual slavery, working long hours at the most dangerous and difficult jobs. They lived under guard in extremely crowded and unsanitary labor camps on the job site. Signal International charged them $1,050 a month to live 24 to a trailer, crammed with bunk beds and only 2 toilets. They could not quit the job as Signal held their documents. Signal is facing several other lawsuits brought by another 230 workers under the Federal Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act. U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is also suing Signal, and that trial begins June 1st in New Orleans. As the Labor Forum has reported before, millions of workers are lured from their home countries to work as domestics, factory workers, nurses, and IT workers with the promise of higher pay, only to find themselves at the mercy of unscrupulous employers. For our national news, this is the 4th week of a national oil workers' strike by members of the Steelworkers Union. On February 21st, workers at the Port Arthur, Texas refinery, the nation's largest, joined the walkout. 3 additional Louisiana facilities also expanded the strike. One of the central issues is the use of contract labor to perform daily maintenance. The union charges that these workers are not sufficiently trained, creating a safety concern. Staffing shortages is another key matter to the workers, which results in extensive overtime and worker fatigue. Just last Wednesday, February 18th, an explosion at a Torrance, California ExxonMobil refinery, located just 20 miles from downtown LA, coated the town of Torrance in a white ash that contained a number of dangerous chemicals. The explosion occurred during maintenance work. 4 contract workers were hospitalized. In 2010, 7 workers were killed at another accident at a Washington State facility. And in 2012, a fire at a Chevron refinery sent 15,000 residents of Richmond, California, to the hospital, suffering from exposure to the toxic fumes. The blast also injured 19 workers. The union's slogan of, quote, "Safe refineries save lives," unquote, has broad support from workers, their families, and communities who recognize that corporate profit-driven policies are dangerous to everyone. Excuse me. I have to know I caught a cold while I was up in Minnesota last week, so I'm feeling a little coffee there. Okay, and here's an update on the Boston school bus drivers' fight to provide safe and professional service to public school children and to maintain their rights as workers in the face of Veolia Corporation's attacks. The trumped-up felony charges against union founder and bus driver Steve Kirschbaum go to trial on Monday, March 2nd. At every previous legal hearing, including during the February snowstorm, one of many in Boston, Kirschbaum's fellow union members and community supporters have overfilled the courtroom. Steelworkers Local 8751 is known for its extensive support of other unions and communities, turning out its membership time and time again for solidarity rallies and protests. Contract negotiations are slated to begin in April, and the workers will continue to demand the rehiring of their fired leadership and adherence to the gains they have made on the job over the years. Additional information and ways to help these militant workers can be found at www.bostonschoolbus5.org. And those are our headlines for today. And now we're ready for Paul to just wow us with some additional information in this week in labor history.
Thank you, Diane. 2 birthdays this week. The first is of W.E.B. Du Bois, whose life of 95 years is impossible to do justice to in these few words. Born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts on February 23, 1868, William Edward Burghardt Du Bois was one of the most important intellectual figures this country has ever produced. He was a leading African-American sociologist, writer, educator, historian, radical activist, and Pan-Africanist. Educated at Fisk University, Harvard University, where he became the first African-American to earn a PhD, and the University of Berlin, Du Bois studied with some of the most important social thinkers of his time, and then launched a 70-year career that combined scholarship and teaching with lifelong activism and liberation struggles. During his prolific career, he published 19 books, edited 4 magazines, co-edited a magazine for children, and produced scores of articles and speeches. During 2 extended periods here in Atlanta, 1897 to 1910 and 1933-34 to 1944, Du Bois contributed immensely to the black intellectual and activist community and produced a number of studies that explored the social, economic, and political conditions of African Americans in Georgia and across the United States. In Georgia, Du Bois wrote some of his best-known works, including The Souls of Black Folk, Dusk of Dawn, and Black Reconstruction, and established a journal dealing with the African American experience. In Black Reconstruction, Du Bois connected the oppression and exploitation of black slaves and then black freedmen to the development of U.S. capitalism and the rise of American imperialist domination. Du Bois moved African Americans from the margins of American history and placed them at the center of a global struggle for emancipation of the oppressed and exploited. The overthrow of Reconstruction destroyed the hope of democracy for all labor, black and white. In 1909, he was a founding officer of the NAACP and became editor of its magazine, The Crisis. It carried editorials by Du Bois that supported the ideals of unionized labor, but attacked the racism demonstrated by its leaders, who systematically excluded blacks from membership. In 1918, in an article, The Black Man and the Unions, he wrote, "I have tried, therefore, to see a vision of vast union between the laboring forces, particularly in the South, and hoped for no distant day when the black laborer and the white laborer, instead of being used against each other as helpless pawns, should unite to bring real democracy in the South." In 1920, Du Bois published Darkwater, Voices from Within the Veil. The book contained Du Bois's feminist essay, The Damnation of Women, which was a tribute to the dignity and worth of women, particularly black women. Du Bois was also a supporter of Pan-Africanism and helped organize several Pan-African congresses to free African colonies from European powers. Du Bois believed that capitalism was a primary cause of poverty and racism, and he was supportive of socialist causes throughout his life. He was an ardent peace activist and advocated nuclear disarmament. In 1961, Du Bois settled in Ghana and began work on the Encyclopedia Africana, a collection of information on Africans and peoples of African descent throughout the diaspora. Shortly thereafter, he joined the American Communist Party and became a citizen of Ghana, where he died in 1963. The second birthday this week is of Meridel Lesueur, a writer and activist born on February 22, 1900. She was one of the great women literary and feminist voices of the 20th century, which her long life spanned. She was the daughter of socialist feminist parents and was raised in the Midwest, where she was also influenced by the stories and poetry she heard from Native American women. She quit high school and began writing fiction and working as a journalist in the late 1920s. Her first article was published in 1927, and her writing included working-class novels, short stories, journalism, children's books, personal journals, and powerful feminist poetry. Her early works, in addition to profound working-class consciousness, are also focused on the struggles of women, and particularly poor women, those sterilized without their consent in so-called mental hospitals, and those on the breadlines during the Depression. She also wrote about labor, Native American struggles for land and autonomy, farmers and rural people, unemployment, and migrant workers. By 1925, she had become a member of the Communist Party and was blacklisted during the 1950s, but continued to write. Beginning in the 1960s with the civil rights, anti-war, and women's movements, Lesueur's work found a new audience. She traveled around the country, participating in campus protests and interviewing people, listening to their stories. Meridel Lesueur believed in giving voice to people's struggles. She said she learned early to write down what they were saying, listening to them. Her writings were grounded in the grassroots, salt-of-the-earth stories and experiences of women, working people, the poor, the disenfranchised, and the dispossessed. Her immense love, respect, and belief in the power of the people and the power of the word were ever present in her work. She believed her writing could be a bridge making connections across many different communities and cultures. She continued writing until close to her death at age 96. She was a witness, a defender of people's lives and struggles, touching on the deepest truths. She wrote, "The people are a river that never ends." She strove to make history a living, moving part of our lives. She said words should heat you. They should make you rise up out of your chair and move. Her life and writings testify to the profoundly democratic idea that transformative social change always bubbles up and sometimes erupts from below.
Thank you, Paul. I have to say, I sort of think that description of what she said about listening to the voices of the people is certainly what we strive for here at WRFG and the Labor Forum. And I appreciate you bringing our attention to both of these great figures. So, folks, we actually have our caller who's calling from the workers' rally that's taking place at the Capitol. Hi, Veronica.
Hi.
Thank you so much for taking time. I think it's still going on. If you could just real quickly tell us what's happening and why.
There's a workers' rally at the Capitol for workers' rights in Bangladesh. Bangladeshi garment workers.
Oh, hi. Oh, you're the Veronica with the Bangladesh tour.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That segment we're going to do in another few minutes. So we'll just go ahead. Can you hold on? And we'll do these two announcements, and then we'll come back with you and the two sisters from Bangladesh. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, thanks so much. Sorry. So we hear these two announcements from WRFG, and then we'll be right back with our information about the struggle of garment workers in Bangladesh.
Welcome back to the Labor Forum. We're going to talk about, for a few minutes, the rally at the Capitol that's occurring right now. And the issue is about workers' rights.
It is, listeners, and we just sort of changed our schedule. We'll have Kate Foster call us back at 10 of the hour to tell us about the rally that's taking place right now in downtown Atlanta at the Capitol. But we do have one of the organizers of the tour it's taking place by Bangladeshi workers, and so we'll get Veronica on, and then we'll be joined by Kalpona and Mahinur a little bit later. So we'll start with that. This is live radio, so you got to be flexible and spin on a dime. So Veronica, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great. So we're just shifting our schedule around a little bit because you're on the line and you're from out of town, right? You're calling in from out of town?
I'm actually in Atlanta.
Oh, you are? Oh, how wonderful. Okay, so we'll start first with, we're going to have Kalpona and Mahinur come on, and I know you met them at the USAS conference that took place, and then at the action that took place yesterday in Atlanta at the World Congress Center. So without going into a lot of detail, let's make it clear, because here on the Labor Forum, we have had reports before about the horrific working conditions in Bangladesh in the garment industry, and of course we've reported on the massive death tolls that have occurred, that factory fire, the collapse of the Rana Plaza factory where 1,100 plus died. So we know, and we'll get more detail when we speak to our two sisters who actually have worked in those factories. But you all did a kind of really cool action yesterday at the World Congress Center. Could you talk about that?
Sure. So yesterday was kind of the culminating day of the USAS.
And USAS stands for?
United Students Against Sweatshops.
Okay.
It was the last day of our national organizing conference. So a bus of us went down came down to Atlanta and kind of crashed the Kansas Market Expo.
Veronica, we're getting some background noise. Are you any place near a radio?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll just proceed on, and we'll ignore the little funny sounds we hear.
Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. But yeah, so a group of us came down on a bus and crashed the Canvas, which is basically a big market expo where all of the companies who make collegiate apparel kind of meet up and try to sell their products to different schools. And JanSport was there, and JanSport is owned by VF Corporation, who is a big perpetrator in these garment factory fires and building collapses that are happening in Bangladesh. So some of us went inside, and we had banners and flyers that said JanSport and Death Traps, and we chanted around their table and made a big scene to let everyone at the conference know that JanSport items are made in unsafe working conditions for the workers.
I saw the pictures. So I suggest that people, if they're interested in seeing actually what you did, you can go to the both Facebook and the USAS website and see that. And I know that you passed out leaflets as well. And maybe you could talk a little bit about this campaign that the students on various campuses are undertaking to have their colleges and universities not buy products from companies that keep producing goods in these very unsafe situations.
Sure. So USAS, or United Students Against Sweatshops, is waging a national campaign for companies to sign the Accord for Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh. The Accord would basically guarantee that there would be a third party who would go in and check for building violations and safety codes. We're demanding our colleges, each campus is demanding our colleges to require these brands to sign the Accord before they're put into our bookstore. So right now, JanSport may be in a campus's bookstore, and what us USASs are doing is making sure that all of the brands that we patronize are signed onto this Accord. We've also been
okay. Go ahead.
We've also been doing store actions at REI to stop JanSport from there.
So I will ask the two women who are going to come on air in a minute about the actual working conditions. But could you talk a little bit about the response on campus? You know, every student is pretty much encouraged to have a hat, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, or something emblazoned with their school's name, the team of the school, etc. I imagine this is a highly, highly profitable business. Do you have any idea how much these companies make off of students wanting to identify with their schools?
Sure. Schools, of course, make a lot of money in the bookstore on students, on parents, on visitors. They have a lot of contacts with these companies where they are profiting at margins of upwards of $10 million.
And it sort of seems to me that when you, as you say, when proud parents come to visit their kids and the sporting events, etc., that this is a huge source of money, both for the school, but more particularly for the company that gets the contract with the school. So how much success has USAS, the United Students Against Sweatshops, had in getting colleges and universities in the United States to only buy from companies that have signed this accord?
We've actually had many victories, our local chapters of USAS, with getting our college campuses to sign on to the accord, or getting our college campuses to urge these companies to sign on to the accord. So there's a lot of these large corporations still in our bookstores, but at the campuses where we've had victories, it's they're under the contract of the accord as well.
Could you name some of the schools that have gone ahead and done the right thing and made sure that if a student or somebody is wearing a t-shirt, sweatshirt, or hat with their name on it, that in fact it was manufactured in a place where workers don't face death just to go to work?
Well, here at Spelman College, we've recently added orthography of clothing items to our bookstore. They're made fairly and safely by workers who are paid living wages in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, so I know that this situation of garment workers being mistreated so viciously is really a worldwide problem, but that the situation in Bangladesh seems to be certainly one that we hear more about, just totally preventable deaths of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of workers. So Veronica, I believe our guests from Bangladesh have joined us online. Are you there?
Oh, great.
Kalpona, are you there?
Yes, hi.
I want to thank you so much because I know you're in a car traveling through Florida on your way to your next speaking engagement, and we here at the Labor Forum so much appreciate all of you for stopping. Okay, so let me just do a little introduction. I believe we're speaking with Kalpona Akter. She is the director of the Bangladesh Center for Worker Solidarity, which is one of the most, what do we want to say, most known, most respected labor organizations in Bangladesh. And with her is also Mahinur Begum, who is a worker who was in the factory, I believe, that collapsed. Is that correct? And she survived after being buried in the rubble for a day?
Yes, it is correct. She's Mahinur Begum, and she's a survivor from Rana Plaza.
So this is so we are really honored to have both of you on the Labor Forum. And of course, Veronica, who's here in Atlanta and is one of our student activists. So she has been describing what happened here in Atlanta. If, Kalpona, if you could go ahead and describe, since you are the director of this Worker Solidarity Center, some of the conditions that are just rampant in your country regarding workers and their rights and the conditions under which they labor.
Yeah, to describe a few things about the working conditions, first I will say that, you know, our workers really work hard and they're really making low wage. We are, you know, it is $68 per month, which is the minimum wage. And they might, you know, add some extra bucks doing extensive overtime, but still this amount is not enough for their whole month cost. So this is one. Second, you know, Rana Plaza disaster, which has killed over 1,000 workers and left a couple of thousand injured. That has been, you know, knocked everyone around the globe and telling that how unsafe this condition is. So this is second, I would say, though there is a little improvement. And third is the boys at workplace. We're really facing a lot of problems. Our workers face a lot of problems, like firing, beating, false temperatures when they try to organize union at their workplaces. So this is the conditions, you know, I can describe in one, one sentence. If I say, that would be, we have jobs without dignity.
So if Sister Mahinur is there, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to have been in a workplace when the building collapsed, bringing tons of cement down around workers. As you said, I believe the total, or at least the total that's given, is 1,132 of her fellow workers died, and as you said, thousands were hurt. And now is she now an organizer with the center?
She's one of our solidarity members with the center, but she's one of, you know, among Rana survivors who is seek out for their compensation, as well as the safe workplace for other workers. She's unemployed in this moment because she got injury. One of her toes she lost in that collapse. She has like internal injuries, with she getting bleeding in her right ear, and also getting sick, and more. She's in a PTSD. Didn't get proper counseling, so she can go back to the factory. She's in a miserable condition with many other of her co-workers who haven't paid the proper compensation yet.
So I should tell our listeners that my understanding is that Mahinur was 16 when this happened, and that she's now just 18 years old. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. She was 16 years old, and now she's 18.
Could you please describe the work of the center, and do you address these issues of trauma that the workers have experienced? What kind of support do you give to people?
Yes, of course. So the Bangladesh Center for Worker Solidarity, where I work, is a non-government, it is a labor educator NGO, working with Union Federation very closely, and the support we provide is awareness-raising programs to the workers to raise their awareness on law and rights, giving them leadership program, educational program, like how to read and write, and also basic English. And we run extensive campaigns in Bangladesh as well as internationally. And we also provide legal aid support to the workers, because very often our workers get kicked out from their work whenever they try to raise their voice. So we help them to sue the factory owner in the labor court for their legal compensation or reinstatement. And the campaign we run locally, it is safe workplace, have a safe workplace for workers, and also realization of maternity leave for garment workers. And we also run a campaign to review the minimum wage. It is every 3 years we run that. And internationally, we run campaign to have brands to take responsibility to have a safe workplace. And I can talk about our campaign that we ran with organizations like USAT and some other unions in US and Europe, which is a code on Bangladeshi fire and building safety, which has been signed by the corporations and the global and local unions. Over 200 brands now has been signed on that, brands and retailers from Europe, mostly from Europe, and we have pretty good numbers from US too, but not the renowned one like PS Corporation, like Gap, Walmart, who rather signing the accord, which is enforceable, legally binding document. They just went with signing a non-binding, enforceable agreement called Alliance.
Maybe we can explain this a little more to our listeners. I follow a lot of international labor news, and I know that the workers in Bangladesh, the garment workers, the women in particular, have been extraordinary in their courage in marching and striking and demanding decent pay and, as you said, respect and dignity on the job, which means when you go to work, you expect to come home and not be injured and killed. So if you wouldn't mind, so people in the United States are a little bit familiar how you can have a good union or a good contract or a good organization, and then as a way to get around it, the boss or the business will set up sort of like a phony baloney union or some other organization and sort of say, oh, we signed on with this one. Is that an accurate description of what the difference between this accord is that you are working on and this other alliance document?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it is pretty much similar, but more appropriately, if I wanted to say that those brands who went with the alliance, they just wanted to make their consumers fool with their glossy report that, hey, we are doing great, but literally they are not doing anything to improve the working condition in the ground.
So again, Kalpana, so I saw that VF, which is sort of the focus of the action that took place here in Atlanta and perhaps as well of your U.S. tour, owns many different brands, which many of our listeners might be familiar with. So besides JanSport, they also are, another brand is North Face, another one is Vans, and another one is Timberland. Are there still others that VF owns?
Yes, there are almost 30 different logos they, own by VF Corporation.
And that they actually have 190,000 workers in 91 different factories in Bangladesh producing their goods. Is that a correct figure too? So this is obviously, if you were to able to get VF to sign on to this accord, that their factories would be safe.
Yes.
Would be a big win.
I'm sorry, I didn't get.
I'm sorry, that would be a big victory. That would be a big change for a huge segment of the workers in Bangladesh if you were able to get them to sign on.
Exactly, you're absolutely right. That would be a great victory for Bangladeshi workers who are still working in their unsafe buildings. And if VF sign on the code, that would be really huge change in the ground there. And I believe if VF sign the code, some other brands who haven't signed yet, they will follow their footsteps.
That's right. It's a known thing that if the sort of price leader, as they're called, makes a change, that the others very likely will follow. And you're specifically talking about the Gap and I believe Walmart among two that have also refused to sign.
Exactly.
Can we ask in these last several minutes of the program, other than people becoming familiar with the issues of the workers in Bangladesh, and particularly the apparel and garment workers, how is it that our listeners could become active, could support, could make a difference to this struggle?
Yeah, I think as we have Mahinur with us, there is one other thing we're going to do, that to have people awareness and their action on the Rana Plaza workers' compensation. Mm-hmm. And this time we specifically talking about Children's Place. This was one of the brands who were sourcing from Rana Plaza when the factory collapsed. And this company haven't paid any compensation to the Rana Plaza victims. So the listener, through your radio show, I really wanted to tell them that please raise your voice whenever you go to shop at Children's Place. Tell them that they owe they owe a full and fair compensation to the Rana Plaza worker, and they can get involved with USA's website, which is easy to find out, and also like International Labor Forum, who also running this compensation campaign here in the U.S. to act them and write to the brand, and also can do the store protest. Well, we are doing a couple of them, so they can join us in a couple of cities, so to give their solidarity and let Children's Place know in a bigger voice that they really have responsibility to pay a full and fair compensation to these victims and these families.
If I could make just one more general comment about this. It's often, it's just amazing, so many of the products that are produced, whether it's the Dominican Republic, whether it's Haiti, whether it's South Asia, so many different countries, where the workers are paid not just so very little, that's one thing, but then to have to work in conditions of extreme heat, unsafe buildings, potential fire, and make so little, and the corporation who makes money off of this brand, and we could name all of the brands that people pay hundreds of dollars for sneakers, tens and twenties and fifties and dollars for sweatshirts, and yet the worker not only doesn't get any kind of fair compensation, but actually risks their life to make this product. And I certainly hope that all listeners recognize, as we try to say on this program all the time, that workers do all the work. Workers are what make not just this country, but the world operate and run and provide all the services. And they definitely deserve respect and dignity and a decent life. So,
Could I jump
Sure.
in? I'm sorry. I'm
Sure.
a student. My name is Rebecca Peak. I'm from the United Students Against Sweatshops
Sure.
in Louisville.
oh,
And
hi.
I was, hi.
Thank you for
And
being
I
on
was
air.
actually, no problem. And I was actually at the action. So I wanted to say that another thing that students are doing to take part in this, to make sure that brands are held accountable, students are currently running a campaign, called In the Death Drops campaign, where we are trying to get our universities to cut their contracts with the VF Corporation, and particularly with JanSport, because they source so significantly from universities, and students have quite a bit of power in doing that. And that's one thing that United Students Against Sweatshops is doing in solidarity with the workers to try to hold brands accountable to sign on to the accord. And that's why we were at the CAMEX Expo, actually, in Atlanta, because that is where licensees from universities come together with brands like JanSport to try to make their purchases. And we wanted to let their competitors know and let universities know that students are not okay with universities sourcing from such from companies that don't protect their workers and have their workers work in safe conditions. So.
Well, thank you for that. We had Veronica on at the beginning, I think before you came on, and she described that action as well. And I encourage people to go to the website and your Facebook to look at the pictures, because it looked like a good thing that brought a lot of awareness to those folks there. So if I could, in just these last few minutes before we take the caller from Atlanta again, find out one more time again, website information as well, Kalpana, for the center. If your center as well has a website or any kind of way that people can directly connect with you. And then, of course, again, how here in the United States. And I also like to ask what unions in the United States are supporting this campaign.
So here in the U.S., I would, tell listeners to go usas.org. They're going to get more information about this campaign as well as about our center. And from U.S., the supporter, AFL-CIO is one of the supporters of this campaign. UFCW is one of the supporters of this campaign. This is two big unions. And United Steel Worker also, is a supporter of this, campaign.
Let me ask, okay, so it's USAS, that's USAS.org. And then, and again, your own organization, do they just Google Center for Worker Solidarity?
Yes, Bangladesh Center for Worker Solidarity. If they Google, they will get most of the information. And, organizations like USAS also, put some information about us. It's so sorry that we don't have our own website. Our website has been cracked down in back 2010 when we were facing a lot of problems with our own government.
Oh. Let me ask one more question. You were talking about the compensation that should be given to these workers who were injured, and certainly to the families of those that died in the Rana Plaza collapse. What is it? What is the amount? I mean, how did this amount get settled on?
So total, it is $13 million for being, calculated by ILO, International Labor Organization, which is one of United Nations bodies. So it has been calculated based on the claims they have received from injured and deceased families. So far, there is a $9 million gap, and we know that all the brands, those were sourcing from Rana Plaza in the U.S., we have, JCPenney, we have Walmart, and mostly the children's place. They can easily pay that amount,
Yes.
amount of money or more, of course. So they haven't paid anything yet.
Oh, well, those of us who are familiar with these corporations here in the U.S. are totally understanding about their failure to live up to their responsibilities. I want to thank you, all of you who have called in about this super important issue. I want to thank you so much, Kalpona Akter, Mahinur, Begum, and Rebecca and Veronica for joining us here on the Labor Forum. We look forward to hearing about more victories, and certainly for the students that are here in the United States, make sure you keep the Labor Forum on your list as a place for you to get your information out. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you.
Safe travels. All right, listeners, we do have our live call-in from the Capitol where the workers' rally is taking place. Hi, is this Kate? Kate, can you hear me?
I can. I'm sorry, we were disconnected.
Oh, thank you so much for being patient and going with the flow. We had these people traveling in a car down to Miami for an event tonight. All right, so this is Kate Foster, right?
It is.
And you're with the, are you with the North Georgia Labor Council or the state AFL-CIO?
Both.
Both. All right.
Yes.
Well, we just have a few minutes left of the program. We had Neil Sardana on last week telling us that this rally was going to happen, but now you can tell us what is happening.
Okay, I can tell you exactly. Are you ready?
I am.
All right. Well, we just did a common sense economic training for community, and we finished that, and now everybody is marching around the Capitol, and we're bringing attention to the fact that it's time for raising wages.
Well, obviously the fight for 15 is a critical issue, but Neil explained to us that there were just so many other issues.
Yes.
But is there a large number of the fast food and low-wage workers there, which makes that sort of the thing that they are most interested in pushing forward?
Yes, there are actually several groups who are here. It's under what we call the low-wage table, and that low-wage table is made up of labor, Fight for 15, the Domestic Alliance, the Domestic Workers Alliance, several labor unions, and any organizations that actually represent low-wage workers at this point. And yes, there are several organizations who are here with workers who are here to stand up and say it's time for raising wages.
So, so everybody who's a progressive person in this state and around the country realizes what an uphill battle it is to get anything that is of benefit to working people, poor people, so many other groups that are sort of kept out of the power stream here in Georgia, to get anything passed through this General Assembly. But on the other hand, I would have to say that the workers, especially the low-wage workers, must be a little bit excited. The fact that after just not that long, really, on the fight for 15, that they got Walmart to blink a little bit with this announcement that Walmart is going to raise wages and make it possible for people to actually have a set schedule. Has that been brought up today? The fact that this victory, or it's not really a victory, this little step forward really gives...
It was definitely discussed by some of the participants in the Common Sense Economics training that we did. And what we have to make sure we understand is that even though Walmart is giving some places $13 an hour is what workers are making, it's still not a living
Absolutely
wage,
not.
number one. The second thing is that Walmart is definitely an aid of part-time workers. Very few, if any, are getting wages that create a pension, so retirement is not there. Those who do get it are few and far in between. The average wage, as we know, of Walmart workers is $8.80 an hour.
Right. And they're going to go to 9 in another month or so.
Far below living wages.
Far below.
So, and I'd like to share that AFL-CIO National President Rich Trumka has actually initiated a program of raising wages campaign. And that campaign is now in 10 cities across the country, where we're actually lifting up the fact that raises need to be done now, and that people are actually tired of waiting on those wages to take place. Not just in minimum wage increases. There are so many things that go along with raising wages. It includes sick pay. It includes leave time. It includes scheduling. It includes every aspect that goes along with the workers being employed. So we want to make sure people understand that.
I want to thank you so much for calling in, not once but twice, to be able to pass this information along to our listeners. And I look forward to having you on the Labor Forum again, Kate.
That sounds wonderful, and thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll check in later. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, listeners, we've come to the end of our program. We have do we have another announcement to play? We do. Christopher's telling me that we've got an important message for you to hear, and then stay tuned for Democracy Now! Paul, Tamika, and I will be back again next Monday. This is all for now.